is brought to you by Head Start Basketball.
Hello, and welcome to the 76th edition of the Coach's Corner Roundtable on the Hoopheads podcast. Each episode of the Coach's Corner Roundtable will feature our all-star lineup of guests answering a single basketball question. A new Coach's Corner Roundtable will drop around the 15th of each month. April's Roundtable question is, what role do analytics and statistics play in shaping your strategic decisions? Our coaching lineup this month includes Jerry Buckley from Bishop Kenny High School, Chris DeLisio from Olmsted Falls High School, Stephen Halstead from Grace College, Joe Harris from Lake Chelan High School, Chris Kreider from Rice University, Bob Krizancic from Menor High School, Matt Mann from Skills Within Hoops, Raul Placeres from Maryville College, Don Showalter from USA Basketball, John Shulman from the University of Central Arkansas, Ben Vesey from Hargrave Military Academy, David Vogel from Ohio Wesleyan University, and Bob Williams from Fork Union Military Academy. Please enjoy this roundtable episode of the Hoopheads podcast, and once you're finished listening, please give the show a 5-star rating and review after you subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at HoopheadsPod for the latest updates on episodes, guests, and events from the Hoopheads Pod. Hey, Hoopheads, score major savings in the ultimate off-season training solution during Dr. Dish Basketball's April Super Sale. Get $3,500 off Dr. Dish CT Plus and unlock endless stats, drills, and training capabilities. Shop before April 30th of 2025 or while supplies last. Learn more at drdishbasketball.com and follow their incredible content at Dr. Dish B-Ball on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Mention the Hoopheads podcast and save an extra $300 on the Dr. Dish Rebel, All-Star, and CT models. Those are some great deals, Hoopheads. Get your Dr. Dish shooting machine today.
Hi, this is Chris Sullivan, head men's basketball coach at Denison University, and you're listening to the Hoopheads podcast.
Coaches, Game Changer is making your game film more valuable than ever. New this season to Game Changer, Film Room allows team staff to analyze full game videos, add comments to specific moments, and quickly share feedback with other coaches, team members, or families. The #1 youth sports app automatically skips downtime in the game film, condensing event video into active play so you can focus on the moments that matter. The best part? It's completely free for coaches. Download Game Changer now on iOS or Android and take your coaching to the next level with Film Room on Game Changer. Game Changer. Stream, score, connect. Let's hear from our panel about the role analytics and statistics play in shaping their strategic decisions. Jerry Buckley, Bishop Kenny High School, Jacksonville, Florida.
This is Jerry Buckley answering this month's questions about analytics and statistics. We definitely try to be aware of as much as we can from the stats and analytics side. Obviously, for ourselves, we feel like our stats are fairly accurate as far as knowing who shoots the ball well from different spots on the floor, three-point shooting percentage, overall shooting percentage, as simple as who should be shooting our technical free throws if that happens, anything like that. With our opponents, sometimes we try to get as much information as we can. If we have statistics on them, we obviously want to be aware of who shoots the ball well for them. Also, typically, how many points do they score and how many do they give up as far as getting a general feel for their style of play. And then certainly down the stretch of a game, whom to foul if needed with pressure free throw situations and stuff like that. So we really try to make sure we're aware of as many stats as possible and then certainly take them into account for those end of the game situations, especially just overall general impressions on the game.
Chris DeLisio, Olmsted Falls High School, Olmsted Falls, Ohio.
Hey, Hoopheads. Chris DeLisio at Olmsted Falls. Believe that analytics has to be a pretty important and big part of what you do in your basketball program. I think the starting point of it is looking at how you play both offense and defense and how those analytics make or play a role in the decisions that you make and the design of both your offense and defense. Analytics has obviously been a big part of changing offensive styles with threes and layups in the past handful of years. And I think that's just one example of how you can use it to your benefit. And also take a look at your personnel and what they can do within the scope of your offensive scheme and game plans individually. And then I think you can use it with individual players to take a look at their skill improvement and what they need to do to improve in certain areas and what role they play in your offensive scheme as far as what they're good at, and allow those kids to be able to improve in those areas if they want to be a bigger part of those offensive schemes and change their roles.
Stephen Halstead from Grace College.
Hey, this is Stephen Halstead from Grace College, hopping on the Hoops Head Roundtable number 76. And the question this week was, what role do analytics and statistics play in shaping your strategic decisions? And this could probably be something that is an entire podcast, not just a minute answer. But I think with how deep you can get into analytics and statistics now, that as a coach, you have to realize what you truly value and what stats that you want to look at. And two key stats that we look at Grace is this: we really believe in the team that takes the higher quality shots throughout the game is going to be the team that ultimately wins the game. So I know coaches that use Synergy are able to look in, and there's something they have that's called expected point value from each game. And it factors into each shot the team takes, the amount of points per possession that would be generated from that. And that was one thing that we look at each game, because we feel if we can force teams into tougher shots, and then vice versa, if we take better shots, that we're going to be able to have a chance to win the game. And then the second thing that we look at that helps us shape our strategic decisions is paint touches. We believe that every time that we get a paint touch, we have a much higher chance of scoring and our points per possession goes up. This is actually something that we have a manager or student assistant track every single game. And we have done that for the last 4 years. And it is unbelievable to see the differences for when we get a paint touch compared to when we don't get a paint touch. So those are two analytical and statistics that we monitor year round. And obviously there are hundreds more, but those are the two that we deem most important for us.
Joe Harris, Lake Chelan High School, Lake Chelan, Washington.
Hello, Hoopheads. This is Joe Harris at Lake Chelan, jumping back in with this month's roundtable question. What role do analytics and statistics play in shaping your strategic decisions? Analytics is really taking a bigger role in today's game, and tracking your athletes in real time and with real performance can be used in many different ways. It can help with the recovery of your athletes, the actual training of your athletes, or even formulating your own game plan as a coach. We found it very useful and helpful for us, especially the second time around in conference play, or when we moved on to the playoffs and played for someone for the first time. The tendencies of our opponent, we would track and use then to be able to take something away, or what we're going to do in specific situations within the clock or game management. But we also placed a premium on our athletes and teams playing with great effort and playing together. And we felt we needed a way to measure that, those intangibles. And we came up with a way of charting this using our own game stats with 10 different categories, 7 positive categories and 3 negative ones. An example of these would be -3 for a turnover, +2 for a steal, +2 for taking a charge. You miss a lay-in, -3. Hustle plays, which deflections, diving on the floor, we would give a +1. And we used it to try and get a good read on how our teams and players are doing with the standards that we had set. But really, whatever you collect is for the coaches to help supplement and to influence what you're doing as coaches, but it cannot be an end-all, be-all to your game planning. Hoping this is something you will find useful, and good luck as you jump into the summer season.
Chris Kreider from Rice University.
Analytics and statistics are so important when it comes to shaping strategic decisions, not only on the court, but also in recruiting. I think the use of numbers can dictate a lot first and foremost, it's about, how you want to use them. On the front end, I know you like to use your eyes and trust your gut, go with the feel that you have, when it comes to a game, let's say in real time, in a practice. And then also, you watch the film after and you have the feel. I personally always like to lean into the numbers as a guide, as a tool to help me stay away from any potential mistakes that I might make from what I thought I saw or thought I felt. Sometimes it does back up what you feel and see, but then sometimes, I know I found myself not really being correct, and you use them as a guide and you use them as a tool to fix that. You always want to be there before you get there when it comes to these decisions. And I think on the front end, you can use it to stay away from wasting time and doing something you might regret. And then I also feel like on the back end, it can help you autocorrect or correct the mistakes you might have made and make those changes moving forward to not make the same mistake. And I think, doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results is the definition of insanity. And I think the numbers help you stay away from being insane.
Bob Krizancic, Mentor High School, Mentor, Ohio.
Coach K, Mentor High School, statistics, analytics, how they play a role in our strategic decisions. They definitely do. Each game we know who we want to foul, who their best free throw shooters are, who their worst are, 3-point shooters, who we want to let shoot the basketball, who we want to deny. End of game situations, analytics definitely play a role. I like the fact that analytics in the NBA now up 6 with maybe under 25 seconds. They're going to foul and give the 2 points versus a 3-point shot. So it definitely plays a role in our game plan and our decisions at the end of the game. Best of luck.
Matt Mann from Skills Within Hoops.
Matt Mann, roundtable question. What role do analytics and stats play in shaping your strategic decisions? The analytics and statistics play a pivotal role when it comes to shaping the strategic decisions with my basketball training and the kids that I train. By leveraging the data, it helps me make informed decisions that not only enhance the effectiveness of the training, but it also helps me tailor the coaching to the individual needs. For instance, if I went and used player performance stats to identify areas where each player needs improvement, this allows me to basically tailor or customize the drills that we do in each of our sessions, like more effectively. Using a data-driven approach ensures that we're not just guessing what skills to develop, but we are more so guided by the data and the concrete metrics. And people know numbers don't lie. So that's what I use. Additionally, stats help in setting realistic, achievable goals for my players. We'll look at the sort of trends. We can set the bar or benchmarks for them that it gives them a challenge and something to be ambitious towards, but they're not so far out that they're not attainable. And this helps just to keep the players motivated to push their limits, in a more structured way. I think lastly, analytics help in evaluating the success of my training programs, by comparing sort of stats from early on when the kids first started training to, after a couple weeks or even a couple months. Even some kids just even after a couple of sessions, we can see the level of improvement when we're actually looking at the results, like made layups or, might be pull-up jump shots, and, they're becoming more consistent because we've made like a tweak. So refining the methods, using data helps me to continually improve the quality of my training. That being said, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to share my insights, and I look forward to seeing or hearing the compilation of responses from some of the other coaches and contributors. I love the roundtable. It's a fantastic initiative, and I'm thrilled to be a part of it.
High school and middle school basketball program directors, listen closely. Coaches are expected to do far more than just coach. You know this. It doesn't matter if you're doing the coaching yourself or you have a full staff of coaches with you. You know very well that coaches handle scheduling, academic issues, parent communication, leadership development, and even mental health concerns for athletes. A lot to deal with. And when coaches are stretched too thin, it impacts the development of athletes, team morale, and the overall success of the program. There are several ways to prevent you or your coaches from feeling overwhelmed. However, I'll tell you one of our favorite ways to keep coaches firing on all cylinders, and that's athlete-driven accountability and organization. Instead of coaches constantly reminding players about assignments, grades, and practice schedules, the programs at Playmaker Planner put the responsibility back on the athletes. By tracking their own academics, goals, and commitments, student athletes become more self-sufficient, which of course allows the coach to focus on what they love doing most, coaching. Let's find out if the programs from Playmaker Planner can be a complement to what you're already doing. Visit playmakerplanner.com/stop-is-this-for-you to find out more. Raul Placeres from Maryville College.
This is Coach Raul Placeres, head men's basketball coach at Maryville College. What role do analytics and statistics play in shaping your strategic decision? In today's game, I think it definitely helps with evaluating player performance. It gives you an accurate picture of what a player's value is, depending on the stats that you value most as a staff. You can obviously see and have access to consistency, of when they're on the floor, their plus minus, and it obviously helps you determine ideal rotations. I think it helps with shot selection and efficiency as well. With today's analytics, the heat maps and the charts can show, a better way of finding the right type of shots so your players can be more efficient, and obviously helps you tailor your offensive scheme. It definitely helps with scouting and matchups, how players perform against certain defenses, which matchups are favorable or should be avoided, and lineup combinations that lead to the best net rating on the floor. And, optimizing the lineup is critical as the season goes on. What are the best 5 guys at certain points during the game that need to be on the floor? And those typically lead to the biggest impacts on the floor, which leads hopefully to winning. We also use it not only for substitutions, but play calling and, finding the guy the right look when it's needed and fouling certain people in certain situations. So, at the highest levels, I think they use it more for load management and injury prevention. But in short, I think the game is becoming increasingly data-driven, and successful teams, are doing a better job at utilizing the analytics of the game. So those are ways in which we use analytics, and definitely has helped our program in my tenure here as a head coach.
Don Showalter, USA Basketball.
Hi, Don Showalter here from USA Basketball. And what role do analytics and stats play in the game of basketball, as far as I'm concerned? Well, I think there's several ways to look at this. First of all, stats are very important for us as far as figuring out what works and what doesn't work. For instance, we'll track deflections. We like to get 4 defensive deflections per quarter. If we do that, we're playing pretty good defense. So that's a stat that's not maybe normally kept, but we also try and stat the number of times the ball gets reversed and then the shooting percentage off those times. So we found out if the ball does not get swung at all, we shot about high 30s, 36, 37%. Ball gets swung one time to the other side of the court from one side to the other. The shooting percentage goes up about 8%, and when we swing it back again, goes up another 8%. So we're talking 16% difference from keeping the ball on one side to having 2 ball reversals. So those are stats that we like to keep and like to show the players. Analytics are, obviously you take a look at those, maybe, what 5 players that you have playing are doing the best in the game. You get a plus or minus from each of the time you substitute in with different players. And I think that's valuable, but that can change every game. So you're maybe not looking at the situation where, these 5 players are playing good this game. It depends on maybe the defense or that's being played or the matchups. So analytics are important, stats are important. I think it's how you gauge everything in your system that makes them real valuable. Thank you.
John Shulman from the University of Central Arkansas.
This is John Shulman, head coach at Central Arkansas, and the question of the month: what role do analytics and stats play in shaping your strategic decisions? Remember, I'm old, and it's no excuse, but I don't. I know this is the age of analytics, and to change a lot of different things, I'm trying to change, but I still think you have to have some feel of the game. Now, analytics and stats, and I think we do try to make an effort to shoot threes and layups, but I'm not going to stop a kid from shooting a mid-range J just because of analytics if he's really good at it. Latest things that I'm hearing, and this is pretty good, you play the first 35, 36 minutes of a 40-minute game with analytics, and then at the end of the game, you do have to play off a field. I do think they're important. Stats are definitely important, dealing with scouting and who to foul. And, I think you probably need to do a case study on Nova Southeastern and Jim Crutchfield and his mathematics and analytics, because it's the thing to do right now. And the women's coach at Union University in Jackson, Tennessee, Mark Campbell, does a great job with that also. And so I do think there's a time and a place for it, but also I think there's a time and a place for coaching off a field. And I probably coach off a field more than I do analytics and stats, and that's probably wrong. But as I said before I started this, I'm old. And all the new analytics is great, but I still think there's a time that you better be coaching off the field and what you feel is right at that time. It helps me sleep at night. Hope this helps. Good luck to y'all. Have a great summer.
Ben Vesey from Hargrave Military Academy.
What's up, Hoop Heads? This is Ben Vesey, head prep basketball coach at Hargrave Military Academy, checking in for this month's roundtable. The question was, what role do analytics and statistics play in shaping your strategic decisions? And for us, they do have some relative impact. We don't want to be too bogged down by analytics and statistics that we lose feel for the moment, and vice versa, right? Because I'm a math guy by trade. I like the data, and it's about how you apply that data, right? So for us, we have specific offensive statistics and categories that we look at as our KPIs, our key performance indicators. Those are free throw rate, 3-point field goal rate, assist to turnover ratio, and offensive rebound rate, right? All those areas, if we can be in the plus, right, in those areas, we feel like we have a pretty good chance to win. There are other just binary statistics, right? Like holding our opponents under 70, holding our opponents to under 12 offensive rebounds, turning the ball over 12 or less times a game. Like those are all areas of performance indication that, if we are successful in those areas, most likely we're going to win, right? So as the season goes on, right, we play, a 40-plus game season here at the prep level. So we're able to see and analyze trends, and that will help us tweak things along the way, right? We don't want to be so bogged down and married to our beliefs at the beginning of the season that we choose not to evolve, right? Because the data and the statistics might tell us otherwise. So in terms of shaping overall strategy, right, we have those specific areas that we'll build our offensive philosophy around, right? So that, we can find success in those areas. And then we'll look at the trends throughout the season and make changes as necessary. Again, I think that in this era of basketball, analytics is so important, right? And you have to embrace that to a certain point, but you don't want to lose authenticity of who you are and how you want to run your program, right? So it's about collecting that data and then knowing how to use it appropriately.
David Vogel from Ohio Wesleyan University.
What's going on? This is David Vogel, assistant men's basketball coach at Ohio Wesleyan University. This month's question, what role do analytics and statistics play in shaping strategic decisions? We actually did a really deep dive on this, our head coach and I, last offseason, looking at how our offense can be more efficient. We found a lot of things on paint touches and things like that. And this was more so not just strategic decisions, but educating our players on what the best shots were, how to get them, and what's good for us. And it worked out really well this past season, mostly because of our players. We were, I think, 5th or 6th in the country in points per possession on offense. We're more than happy to share, what we found last year. And then defensively, that's something that we need to get better at. And we are all ears in terms of looking at analytics, statistics, things like that. So if anybody has anything to share, we'd love to see it. My email is davogel@owu.edu, and look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.
Bob Williams from Fork Union Military Academy.
Hello, this is Bob Williams, Fork Union Military Academy. When we look at stats and analytics, I'm kind of an old school guy that still relies on long-time stats. I am interested in rebound percentage, turnover percentage, things like that with the new analytics. But, the first thing I look at after a game or halftime is field goal percentage defense. We've always felt like if we can hold our opponents under 41% field goal percentage defense, we have a chance to be successful. This year we held opponents to 38% overall on the season, which is one of the best defensive teams I've had over the years. And but obviously looking at turnover margin, free throw attempt margin, rebound margin, and things like that. First thing we always look at is defense, and then we'll also look at what we're shooting from the 3-point line, as far as how many attempts and what's the percentage of shots. If we're taking, usually I think this year was 40% of our shots were 3-point shots, and then what are we shooting from 3 as well. Thank you.
Thanks for checking out this month's Hoopheads Podcast Roundtable. We'll be back next month with another question for our all-star lineup of coaches. Your first impression is everything when applying for a new coaching job. A professional coaching portfolio is the tool that highlights your coaching achievements and philosophies, and most of all, helps separate you and your abilities from the other applicants. The Coaching Portfolio Guide is an instructional membership-based website that helps you develop a personalized portfolio. Each section of the Portfolio Guide provides detailed instructions on how to organize your portfolio in a professional manner. The guide also provides sample documents for each section of your portfolio that you can copy, modify, and add to your personal portfolio. As a Hoopheads Pod listener, you can get your Coaching Portfolio Guide for just $25. Visit coachingportfolioguide.com/hoopheads to learn more.
Thanks for listening to the Hoop Heads podcast, presented by Head Start Basketball.